You know, it's spring in Florida, even though it's still winter, because we have a little bit different season down here than most of the rest of the country. So it's a little chilly, but it's also the dead of winter. But you know, one big key to spring is swim bait fishing, and that's something that just doesn't only apply to Florida. That's something across the country that comes into play. And you know, one of the misconceptions that I even had going in is that you can use one style of swim bait or one type of swim bait to address all your swim bait needs, whether you're throwing a swim jig and you need a trailer, whether you're throwing a naked swim bait. The fact is there's different swim baits for different applications, and they can really make those applications show off what they can do when you're using the right style of swim bait. I try to break my stuff up into two different dimensions. Basically, I have what I call a full body swim bait. An example of a full body swim bait would be something like the Gambler Big Easy. And when I say full body, basically I mean it's entirely plastic. There's no hollow portion in it. It's a pretty straightforward deal, shaped like a bait fish, and it's all plastic. That's the real big kicker. The other way I divide swim baits is your hollow body swim baits. And that's something kind of like this Bass Tricks right here. There's a lot of different ones on the market, but what defines a hollow body is it has a little air pocket in the middle. It's not a full body of plastic. It retains that air, and it gives it a different action and a different kick when you're fishing them. And like I said, spring is a great time to be throwing swim baits. And really, the way I break things up is this. There's certain applications that really kind of shine when you use that full body style, and then there's certain applications that are going to show off a lot more when you're using that hollow body. So what are some examples? Well, down here in Florida, we are world renowned for fishing the hayfields, buzzing baits over the grass, fishing topwater, and that's where a full body swim bait really shines. You almost fish it a lot like a frog, and I got my Big Easy right here. Basically, you can rig it a couple different ways. I like putting it on a twist lock hook like this with no weight, or with a very, very light weight, a 32nd ounce or a 16th ounce. And why I'm using that full body for that application is you're gonna get a lot of blow ups and misses. So you're gonna have fish tearing at the bait, you're dragging it through some heavy cover, and it tears up the bait. And I'm kind of cheap, so I don't want to use a bunch of baits, and that full body takes a beating a lot longer than dragging a hollow body, and it seems to skim through the water a bit better. The other caveat is too, that full body has a lot more weight to it because it's entirely made of plastic. So what ends up happening is, even if you're throwing it weightless, you can still launch the thing a mile when you're fishing those long, expansive grass flats and you need to buzz that bait. You know, another application I like using a full body swim bait for, and this is going to apply more to you guys that are fishing a little bit deeper. We don't do it so much down in Florida, at least on the natural lakes like Okeechobee and that, but on some of the deeper lakes we do, and that's an A-rig, an umbrella rig, 5-rig, whatever you want to call it. And once again, this relates kind of to my cheapness while I'm running these full body swim baits. Basically, they hold the jig heads a lot better. They take a lot more of a beating. If you ever fish an A-rig, you know how many swipes and misses that you get, and it ends up tearing up the bait. And if you're using hollow body style swim baits on that kind of application, you know, they rip, they tear, they slide off. You got to super glue them. You're almost spending more work modifying and upkeeping the rig than you are actually fishing it. So it's a great way to kind of take advantage of getting a little extra weight because the plastics are full body, as well as a little more durability, so you're casting more than you're changing out baits. So an A-rig with full bodies is the only way I go. Another application, and actually I don't got one rigged up, but I got one right here. You know, swim jigs are awesome, but it's a power style of fishing, much like the A-rig. And having a trailer that's not going to slip and slide on you, where you can make a bunch of casts and be efficient, is hugely important. And having a full body swim bait on there, whether you want to glue it on or use some kind of fastener, you know, it really lasts a lot longer. It's a lot more durable. You can throw it into the wood, you can rip it. Sometimes we'll throw swim jigs on big old grass flats that are a little bit submerged, and we'll rip that bait just like you would a trap. And you'll find when you're using hollow bodies in that kind of application, that bait's going to slide down on you. So if you're doing swim jigs in any form, this is a swinging head swim jig, or just do traditional swim jig, using like an easy, a little easy, you know, those style full body trailers are great applications to really use that full body and get the most out of your time and your fishing. Let's talk about hollow bodies. When do you want to use a hollow body in spring, or when do I use a hollow body in spring? You know, one of my favorite ways, and I gotta admit, I kind of stole this deal from you guys up on the TVA for some of my deeper water fishing, is putting a giant hollow body like this Bass Trick 7-inch bait on a 3/4 ounce head jig. And you know, why is this so great? Well, in spring, especially when you're talking about deeper fish, those fish, depending on the heat and depending on what's happening in the water, will have a tendency to move up and down in the water column. They won't so much move in shallow as they'll suspend, they'll move down, they'll follow more of a depth line. And what you can do with this is basically you can slow roll it to various depths. You can get your counts, once you get dialed in, you get your counts kind of dialed in, and you can ride that bait up a little higher, ride it down a little higher, drag it along the bottom and slow roll it. You can really cover a lot of depths, and there's something about the action when you're running just a naked solo hollow body that really performs awesome in spring. And it's a little bit different kick than the easy. I think it's a little tighter kick, especially when you're dealing with like a bass tricks. It's got a little more subtle wobble, and when you're dealing with those spring funky fish, especially when they're suspended, that means they're in a funky mood, that hollow body really shines. The other thing you can do with these guys is you can take that hollow body and you can put it on lighter jig heads, and you can actually put it on kind of like a monster hook, a monster freaking owner hook, and you can actually slow roll that over the grass as well. Basically, I guess if you boil it down to it, the only application I'm really applying those hollow bodies are when I'm throwing the bait solo or naked. It seems like in applications like swim jigs, A-rigs, you know, where you're throwing multiple baits or you're throwing it as a trailer for a bait, that full body Big Easy style bait really shines because it takes more of a beating and it gives you that good kick. But when you're just going naked and you're dealing with kind of finicky fish and you're throwing that swim bait solo, that's when you want to go with that hollow body like the bass tricks. Plus there's a million colors in both, so you can really cover any application that you need. So in spring, recap, grab yourself some swim baits, but always remember, swim baits is a general term. You want to break it down, have a plan, get out there and use the best bait that applies to those applications that you're tossing. And what is it going to mean? It's going to mean more fish in spring. So I'm going to get back to fishing here, but tight lines. I hope this guy helps you out, guys.